As you know, tonight we wanted to summarize the AWS Summit. Did anybody actually go to the summit? I've spoken to, yeah, okay. So we've got
all of you leave
3 or 4 people in, yeah. So if you want to add, obviously we're not going to summarize the entire summit because there was a hell of a lot going on at the AWS Summit in London. But we'll summarize our experience of the summit. Jon wrote this slide, so I'm going to have to tell one of Jon's jokes. Yeah, it's not at the top of a mountain, but there is a lot of walking at the summit. I don't know how many steps we did, but yeah, there's an awful lot of walking. But if you've never been to an AWS Summit, they are a global series of single-day AWS conferences where loads of stuff going on, lots of announcements from AWS, keynote speeches, case studies from existing customers, lots of partners, and so on and so forth. There's training. One of our colleagues spent the whole day in exam preparation sessions for his AWS certifications. Lots of hands-on workshops where you can get hands-on with AWS technologies. There's an Ask an Architect pavilion where there's a whole bunch of solutions architects from AWS where you can just go and ask them any question you like about AWS architecture. And of course, the partner pavilion, as we mentioned. And that picture there is Jon getting harassed by PagerDuty before we'd even got into the building. So if any of you are in the ops world, which I've already said that we are, you'll know all about PagerDuty and the stress that that causes. So it's lovely to see PagerDuty hanging around the entrance to the AWS Summit. So some big numbers. I love big numbers because I'm actually a sales guy rather than a technical guy. So we've got these numbers from AWS. There were 15,907 attendees at the recent London Summit, 178 sessions, which is why we're not going to summarize all of them because we'd be here all night if we did, and 122 sponsors in the sponsor pavilion. So I'm going to hand over to Jon, who is now going to summarize the keynote presentation from the recent AWS Summit.
Well, I'm going to attempt to, but not to worry. I have put an override on PagerDuty, so it won't go off this time. Okay, that went down like a can of bricks. Excellent. So this presentation can be significantly less slick than their one was, because their one was very, very slick. According to the VP of whatever he was VP of, data and something and something and something, we are...
Siva Swami Subramanian.
I'm impressed. I didn't even attempt
I've been practicing.
We are apparently at the tipping point for generative AI because we are at the convergence of 3 things. It was cheap cloud computing, GPU power, and a third thing. So we are apparently at the tipping point for generative AI, which is why it's all kicking off. The whole keynote went really quite hard into the AI space, probably as you'd expect, given all the ChatGPT nonsense and everything else that's been going on. AWS were clearly trying to drive the point home that they've been doing this for a while, and that the announcements they put in the wake of ChatGPT weren't very knee-jerk. They were, we're in this space for the long term. I mean, they have been. It's not untrue. They've been doing this with SageMaker and what have you for a while now. In the AI space, we did hear some concrete information about Bedrock, which, yes, that announcement was very knee-jerk in the Microsoft bought a load of ChatGPT. We need to talk about AI, announce something, and it wasn't done. It's still not done. It's in limited preview, but we did get some concrete information. So we have some models. We have 4 of them there. Amazon have their own model, which you'd kind of expect, which I think was for text generation and a few other bits and pieces. And then some third-party ones as well. Claude from Anthropic, Stable Diffusion from Stability AI, which is the one that you see people using for lots of creepy pictures that give very uncanny valley. That's not quite right. That's what that's come from. And AI 21 Labs Jurassic 2. There are a whole bunch of others as well that you can pay for, extras, because everyone likes an extra. And there's a can over there. Everyone likes an extra, but those are the ones that kind of come with it. Still in limited preview, so you can't really go and play with it right now, but it's nice to know that it wasn't just we're building a thing. No, they have actually been building it. Good stuff. Some more things. This one isn't new. Oh, it's also playing the video. That's cool. Code Whisperer is built into your IDE. It works with JetBrains, VS Code, and I think Visual Studio Original. If anyone still uses that, you have my sympathies. Generates code suggestions in real time, scans for vulnerabilities in a couple of languages. No, it doesn't do TypeScript, so you're safe, Simon. Does do Python, does do JavaScript. Flags code that looks like it's training data, which I don't know why that's useful, possibly because it already exists. You could just go and nick it. And it's free for individuals. So you sign up with a builder account, hook it up, and it does magic. I've used it a bit, didn't like it, found it quite pushy and a bit rubbish, to be honest, but there we go. It'll get there. But yeah, it's a thing. Been around for a few months now, but they're just still pushing the AI piece. And then suddenly there were meerkats, because everyone loves a meerkat, right? Unhappy meerkats. Probably because apparently, compare the meerkat, there we go, runs on Kubernetes. That would make anyone unhappy, I think. Oh, come on. These are falling flat. Oh, dear. Yeah, so there was a couple of partners on as well. There was Compare the Market and Arup. I've not done the second one because that was all geospatial and lots of pretty pictures, and they didn't have any meerkats. But a big piece from Compare the Market, presumably convincing AWS that they are going to keep paying their enormous bill and that they don't just spend all their time on Brighton Beach. And then this I found quite interesting. AWS are pushing for a zero ETL future. And I've seen a few faces going ETL and grimacing, so that's a good sign. If you don't know what it is, it's painful. It is. It's very painful. Extract, transform, and load is basically taking data from one source, mushing it around a bit, munging it, and shoving it into something else so you can do something different with it. Typically, what you find is that's people taking it out of their databases to put it in their data warehouses so that they can do business intelligence and bits and pieces on it. And to support that, they have come up with, and again, this isn't brand new, it was kind of reinvent time last year, but again, they're pushing this kind of hard because it's a key focus area for the future, a zero ETL integration between Redshift and Aurora, which is great if you use those things. I try not to. But if you use those things, it means you can do business intelligence and pretty graphs and get your business analysts to do things without having to do an enormous ETL project to get the data out of your database. It's just there. Great. Love it. And there's another new one. This is in preview. I don't know if it's limited or if it's open. I think it's open, called Data Zone. So this is, again, moving out of the AI and into the data space, but they're all kind of a fuzzy mess, really. Similar kind of things. New service called Data Zone, which is an organization-wide data catalog. The idea being that it makes data with business context visible to people that need it. You have a streamlined way of moving data from your publishers to your subscribers, so things that are making the data to things that need the data. You have a space with data projects to collaborate, so you don't necessarily need everyone having all the level of access. It's just kind of there. And it runs not in the AWS console, which is excellent because I don't want my data analyst buggering about with my servers if I can help it. So if we can give them access to something that lets them do what they need to do without having console access, more the better. More push on the ARM space as well, I think because they've got bored of talking about data and AI at this point. AWS were talking about their own silicon, Graviton, which is ARM-based, now on Gen 3, and it's slowly moving its way into new services. It's been around for a while now. Gen 2 is what you kind of see still quite a lot, but Gen 3 is moving its way through the services, and they were very keen to push both the price to performance benefit, probably because they can make their own chips cheaper than they can buy Intel ones, and the fact that because ARM is a different architecture, you can do things that you would traditionally need a GPU for on Graviton chips, so you don't need the GPU-intensive servers to do it. Mostly because GPUs also use ARM chips, so that's kind of why, but they were keen to push that as well. And if this has gone too quickly, too slowly, or you just want to look at someone that knows how to present, there's another QR code there for the keynote on YouTube, which went live yesterday. And if it had been around a week ago, it would have made this a lot easier.
We had to use the hooky pirate version.
So we did talk about the community booth as well in the invite. Karl pointed at stuff and stood in front of a map. Did you do anything else?
I did. Yeah, that was about it, really.
Well, I mean, we tried to.
I spoke to you. Yeah, I spoke to you, Simon. Yeah, I did. I did my stint. So didn't
we talk to your boss?
So as we mentioned in our intros, Jon and I are both in the AWS Community Builder program. So we spent most of the day hanging around the community booth. We were able to volunteer to do an hour stint on the community booth, telling other attendees of the AWS Summit all about the various different AWS community initiatives that there are available. So as we mentioned, we are community builders. Anybody can apply to be a community builder. They open the program up twice a year. I think there are about 3,500 community builders globally. And it's basically a program for anybody who's out there helping to share knowledge about AWS, whether that be as a trainer, as a speaker at an event like we're doing now, whether it be through blogging, doing videos, podcasts, whatever. It doesn't really matter how you're sharing that knowledge. But if you're engaged and involved in sharing knowledge about AWS and about what you're doing with AWS, you can apply to join the AWS Community Builder program. There's a number of benefits. Swag, we love swag, you might have guessed already. So there's a whole swag pack that they send out, and they get a new swag pack each year that you manage to stay in the program, which I haven't done yet. I'm on year 1, the second time around. So I've been in it twice, but I've not managed to get to year 2 yet. So I'm hoping to get to year 2 this year by doing lots more stuff like this. But yeah, there's swag, there's access to free Cloud Academy training. There is exam credits, so you get a free exam voucher. You get $500 worth of AWS credits that you can spin up your own AWS environment and play around, experiment with things, etc. So that's the AWS Community Builder program. You also get access to a global Slack channel, which is very noisy, as you'd expect, with 3,500 people in it. But you do get direct access to AWS experts. There are some things that come out under NDA where you get kind of early product release information and that kind of thing. So it is a pretty valuable program, and all you really got to do is put your name on the waiting list. They open this up twice a year. They ask you to submit, I think, 2 pieces of content maximum.
It's 2 for renewals, but it's like you can do up to about 10, I think, on the initial application.
So if you've got blog posts you've written or YouTube videos you've created or whatever, you can kind of list them all, and then somebody looks at them and decides whether they're good enough or not, and then you get a nice email. Oh, actually, they're cocked it up this year. So first of all, you got an email saying, sorry, we don't want you. And then 5 minutes later, you got another email saying, actually, you're just the kind of person that we would like. So, oh, which one do I believe? Thankfully, we were both in. So we spent half the day telling people about this stuff on the AWS community booth. There was also on the other side of the wall, I don't know when that slide is coming yet. On the other side of the wall, there was a presentation area where various members of the AWS community did talks, so you could submit talks ahead of time. They selected the talks that they wanted to be able to present on the community booth. Zarina Barnsby, who some of you may or may not know, she's a regular attendee at Brighton Cloud, but she hasn't bothered to support us tonight. Where are you, Zarina? At our first AWS Brighton User Group. Never mind, we were there to support her, obviously, taking this photo, but she did a great talk. She even gave Jon and I a shout out about motivating her to do the talk about, I think it was the value of male allies in a...
It was something like that. It was all a bit weird because the talk, you might be able to see from the picture, it was silent conference. So everyone had headphones on and only people with headphones could hear what she was saying. I wandered past to get that photo and then just got pointed at, and 50 people turned around and looked at me whilst I'm trying to eat. Like, hello.
Yeah, and these guys here being a little bit naughty, really, taking seats for Zarina's talk and just eating their lunch and with no headphones on. But there we are. Yeah, so as I say, we hung around the community booth a lot, telling other attendees about the various community initiatives. So AWS Community Builder is one of those. There's another program called AWS Ambassador. If you work for an AWS partner, you can apply to be an ambassador. You've got to have 2 pro or specialty level certifications and various other criteria, I think. But it's harder to become an ambassador than it is to become a community builder, let's put it that way. And then above that, they have what they call AWS Heroes. If you're from the Microsoft world, they're called MVPs. But you cannot apply to become an AWS hero. You've just got to do lots of stuff and get noticed by AWS, and then they will then select you as a hero, and that gets you into an even more exclusive community of AWS guys.
With different swag too.
With different swag, yeah. There's always swag at these various different levels. And we're very proud to say we'll tell you a little bit about our podcast in a while, but I think we've just launched the career of 2 AWS heroes, because we had 2 community builders at separate points on our AWS podcast who've both now gone on to become AWS heroes. So if anybody fancies coming on the podcast, it could be valuable for you. yeah, Jon pretended to be a real boy and handed out stickers and ran the survey on the booth.
Made people poke a Microsoft tablet that said, have you done anything with AWS? Do you code in a normal language or do you like TypeScript? That kind of thing.
2 people selected PHP. I think that was me and Simon, and I only did it for a laugh. So we love PHP. Lots of our customers love PHP, so I'm not here to mock it. I just did it because nobody else had selected PHP, and I wanted to see PHP in the pie chart. Try saying that without your teeth in. Then there was this slide. Jon put that in. I've got no idea, but it looks hideously complicated. This was one of the community talks that was done by a lady engineer, I believe, from Lego.
No, it was Lee Priest, who's a bloke who's about that tall and about that wide. Lee's lovely. This is their reward scheme. So a VOP order in a Lego store goes through that. That looks horrific. And anybody that's familiar with step functions or was at the last Brighton Cloud meetup will have seen a fairly scary step function. I think that one's worse.
You can't read it anyway, so we're not going to leave it on there for much longer. So there were lots of people. I mentioned before, there's 15,000 people. This doesn't actually do it justice. It looked much busier when you were there. Cameras have a habit of doing this, don't they? If it's a steep hill, it looks flat, if there's lots of people, it doesn't look like there was that many people, but there was an awful lot of people. It was quite difficult to kind of push your way around the Excel Exhibition Centre. People queued for things like people do. We're British. We love to queue for things. People queued up to kick a ball. But this was actually a demonstration of computer vision technologies. AWS have a partnership with Bundesliga for real-time match stats. So when you went to kick that ball, you could get in real-time information about the speed, trajectory, etc. of the ball after you'd kicked it. So perhaps worth queuing for, but I couldn't be bothered.
The netting on the top of those girders was hit quite a lot.
And then people queued for stickers. So we like stickers. Obviously, other grown-ups also like stickers because that second photo there is grown-ups queuing for stickers. There's nothing else at the front of that queue apart from stickers. And
they're exclusive stickers. They're exclusive.
They were exclusive stickers, yeah. So exclusive that the ones I wanted were gone by the time I got there. They were specific to the certifications that you have, and you could only get them if you had those certifications, but they were all gone by the time I got to the front of the queue, apart from my SysOps administrator sticker, which I'm proudly displaying on my laptop there. There was also a slide, grown-ups queuing up for a slide sponsored by Snowflake. It's crazy what grown-ups will do at a tech conference. And finally, we all got together on the AWS. So these are all the various AWS community builders, AWS heroes, etc., that helped out on the day on the community booth. We all got together, took a cheesy photo, and then went to the pub where we got free beer and free T-shirts, which was fantastic. At the ComSum, I was wearing my ComSum T-shirt today at the dentist.
I wear mine in the gym.